So I'm the garden educator at All People's Church, and I've been here 9 seasons now, coming up on my 10th. But I really wanted to focus in on this last season with COVID. When COVID first hit and we had the quarantine, I went to Pete's Fresh Fruit Market and spoke with their manager, Vidal, about being able to resource their produce for our people here. We wanted to set out a site where people could come and they would get pre-made bags of produce and some dairy each week on Wednesday. And that went on for 8 weeks. Pastor Lindsay was able to get us a grant for that, so we were fully funded for that. And Vidal from Pete's Market gave us a wonderful, wonderful deal on all of our produce there, usually at cost and sometimes below. For me, that was just the epitome of the beginning of COVID and the outreach of gifting from so many. That they would do that even though they needed to be making the money, that they would care about the community. And when we received more funding and said we could pay regular price, Pete's Market said, no, we want to keep taking care of the community. So for me, that was just the beginning. I say that because we started to come up with an idea around here that it was the layers and layers of blessing from COVID. And it went on to be things like Ramona, one of our neighbors who was blessed by some of the produce and offerings, asking if she could help in the garden, and she loved the zinnias. And so she spent the next 2 months planting zinnias in each of our beds along the edges so the butterflies and bees would pollinate. It was delightful to see her out there, especially since Ramona shared that she had to take her medicine the night before if she wanted to be able to walk and bend well enough to do it. But it was very important to her. So that was very special. And with that came layering and layering. We had Pam, who wanted to come help in the garden because she could no longer help at her other place she was working. And she would come and she would just do random acts of kindness. Anything I would leave out on a list for her, she would come in and she would harvest product, or she would clean up the hoses, or she would pump out the tote, anything I asked of her. Even through into the winter, just this last month, January, she was coming every Tuesday. The layering continued, and we had Dr. Tom, who wanted to come and harvest and do some crazy things that maybe nobody else would want to do. We had a couple couples from St. John's in Brookfield come out, and I love the fact that Mr. Miller's biggest thing was he wanted to repair our garden boxes that were falling apart. So he would come and his wife Mary would pull weeds wherever she could find weeds, and we have quite a plethora. And then he would just choose a box or two that he wanted to repair. Such a blessing. When was I going to have that time, right? And who was I going to find to do that? Well, God provided again. Well, as I told Pastor Chris, it's very likely I will forget many, many stories of the layering. But it still comes up to my whole crew when they're out there. Something will happen and they'll say, layers of blessings.